Greetings, everyone. Hope you had a good week, keeping cool, and everything is well with you. So tonight we're gonna start to conclude our discussion of the 10 vows of Samantabhadra and the sevenfold prayer. Tonight's discussion, I think, will probably surround the ways that we can implement this, the ways that we can practice the meditation on the sevenfold prayer. And there's a variety of different things that we can do. Before we start, as we customarily do, we take a moment, clear our minds, and then to engender within ourselves the proper motivation to receive Dharma teachings, and even to practice the Dharma, right? We always try to bring forth and kindle within ourselves the correct motivation for practice. Being that we are Mahayana practitioners, this is the all-inclusive ideal of practice, right? That just by virtue of us practicing, we practice for everyone else. We take this path so that others maintain emancipation, freedom from suffering and its causes. So with that in mind, we develop some enthusiasm about receiving Dharma teachings. We can, by receiving Dharma teachings and practicing Dharma teachings, we can do a lot of things to help in our lives. But from the perspective of Buddhism, the best thing that we can do, the one that has the most impact, the longest impact, is our spiritual development. It has enormous repercussions for others. So with that in mind, we develop and kindle this altruistic motivation in ourselves to receive these teachings with open ears, to truly try to hear them rather than just to listen to them, and then to contemplate them and put them into practice, right? That's the meditation aspect, that we put them into practice on a daily basis for the benefit of others and for ourselves. So with that, we can talk a little bit about the significance of the sevenfold prayer in terms of practice. So up until this point, we've been discussing the sevenfold prayer as an expression of these 10 vows of Samantabhadra. So, and the vows of Samantabhadra themselves are, you know, we talk about in Buddhism, we talk about samaya. So samaya is a vow, or it's a commitment. So a commitment is kind of like also like a motivation, right? That we say to ourselves that we're going to be accountable to doing this practice. It doesn't mean that we necessarily are able to do it all the time, but we keep being mindful of coming back to this and try to train ourselves on a regular basis to do it. Now, I mean, like, there are samaya commitments in tantric practice. You know, when you receive, you know, initiation from deities, you could have a lot of practices to do every day if you know, like to keep the samaya for all of the deities. Like, for example, my teachers, you know, His Holiness Dakshin Rinpoche, His Eminence Avakrita Rinpoche, Her Eminence Damokusha, have received, you know, and like countless initiations for practices. How do you keep all of those samaya commitments? Well, the way you keep all those samaya commitments is by making the basic commitments part of your daily practice. And actually, Samantabhadra's vow is actually a very good way of doing that. Within it is encompassed many of the things that we do as practitioners on a regular basis, right? I think that probably as we've gone through this, you've seen that. So even just practicing Samantabhadra's vows, like in terms of like recitation of the sevenfold prayer or meditation on the sevenfold prayer, or using aspects of sevenfold prayer in our daily lives and committing to doing that to the best of our ability. Of course, we're not always going to remember, we're not always going to be able to do it perfect, but that's okay. Just that we commit to keep getting back on the horse is extremely, extremely important. The sevenfold prayer, if we look through the Kongyur and Tengyur. So it's a Kongyur and Tengyur that basically the compendiums of all of the different meditation practices. The sevenfold prayer is contained in many of these pujas. So these pujas, pujas is actually we call a ritual. So not necessarily a meditation, but a ritual for a certain deity or Buddha that we do. We make offerings and all various things in the puja, or the meditation practice on a specific subject or on a various deity. The sevenfold prayer is often included whole in those practices. So you'll see at a certain point, after refuge and bodhicitta, oftentimes you'll see in the puja liturgy or text, or in the sadhana liturgy text, you'll see the sevenfold prayer is actually included. So for people that already have some commitments to certain meditation practices, they already they're already reciting the sevenfold prayer and doing it on a regular basis. So they have the opportunity to recite that as a part of their regular practice. But even if the prayer itself or the vows of Samantabhadra himself are not actually like elucidated in a particular puja or meditation practice, they actually, so the vows themselves and the sevenfold prayer is an outline for the way practice texts are usually structured. Usually practice texts, whether or not they have Samantabhadra's vows or the sevenfold prayer, are structured to include all of those vows as a part of the practice. So, for example, so when we talk about prostrating, right? So prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, and then dedicating, right? Those are the major parts of the sevenfold prayer. And within that also to honor the Buddhas on a regular basis and to practice the principles for these for the benefit of all sentient beings. Those are all of the contents of the vows of Samantabhadra. So in the beginning of all meditation sadhanas and pujas as well, we have refuge, right? And so during the refuge portion, that's basically the act of prostrating, that we humble ourselves and take refuge in the triple gem. And then accumulating merit for the benefit of sentient beings comes during bodhicitta. When we recite the four immeasurable thoughts. That's usually the bodhicitta prayer. Then there's almost always some offering section to the practice where we visualize the deity, and then we make the actual physical offerings or the mental offerings, and then offer, like along with that for body, speech, and mind, we can do the mudras, like the Argam, Pardam, Pushpe, Dupe, Aloke, Gande, Naivadeo, Shabda, Ahong. So all of the various offerings that we talked about that are represented by the offering bowls on the altar, right? So that's always included in meditation and puja practices. And then many works have a lineage prayer. So often in the beginning of the sadhana or in the middle of the sadhana or the puja, the lineage prayer is made to all of the various lamas from the Buddha who transmitted that practice up into the present day. So that fulfills the vow of rejoicing that we had been given the Dharma teachings, requesting the Dharma to continually be transmitted, and beseeching the gurus and the Buddhas to continue to be born to transmit these teachings into the world. So that relates to the recitation of these lineage prayers and also the guru yoga practice. So that's supplication to the guru as the physical manifestation here and now of the Buddha. And then, of course, at the end of every practice session, we have dedication of merit. So that, as we talked about last week, ensures that the merits of the practice increase and are sealed for the benefit of everyone. So one way that we can work with the speech and mind aspect of the sevenfold prayer is to actually recite it daily. So if you want to make a commitment to do that as a practice, it is a practice unto itself. And so if we do like the sevenfold prayer, it actually on some level can fulfill our commitments to other practices in a very concise form. So potentially we could do this by reciting it first thing in the morning as your daily practice. If you want to do, like a short meditation afterwards or before, you can do that. And because it is short, it's a perfect thing to do to set your intention and your perception up for the day when you don't have much time. So I was going to suggest that maybe this week we can recite the sevenfold prayer, and we talk about it next week. And then next week we'll talk a little bit more about ways that we can implement aspects of the sevenfold prayer into our lives. Right now, let's actually recite it for a moment. So, all right. So we can begin by taking refuge, although this is actually included in the sevenfold prayer as well. To the excellent Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I go for refuge until enlightenment is won. By the merit of giving and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. To the excellent Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I go for refuge until enlightenment is won. By the merit of giving and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. To the excellent Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I go for refuge until enlightenment is won. By the merit of giving and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. With clarity of body, speech, and mind, I bow without exception to all the lions among men of the past, present, and future, in every world and all the 10 directions. By the power of this aspiration to noble deeds, I manifest bodies as numerous as all the atoms in all the lands, aware in the presence of numberless victorious Buddhas, and I prostrate to all of them. I conceive the entire realm of truth to be completely filled with enlightened ones. There are as many Buddhas as atoms present in each atom, each Buddha surrounded by many bodhisattvas. I honor all of these blissful lords, extolling the ocean of their inexhaustible perfections, with an ocean of all melodies and sounds and endless praise. I offer to those heroic Buddhas the best flowers, best garlands, the best music, the best ointments, excellent canopies, the finest lamps, and the best incense. I offer to those heroic Buddhas the finest robes and best fragrances, and a variety of foods piled as high as Mount Meru, all perfectly arranged. By the power of my faith in noble deeds, I prostrate and present vast and unequaled offerings to each of the victorious Buddhas. I confess every type of wrong that I have done in thought, word, or deed under the influence of desire, anger, or ignorance. I rejoice in the meritorious deeds of all the Buddhas of the 10 directions, the Bodhisattvas, the Prayateka Buddhas, the Arhats, practitioners, and all sentient beings. I request all the enlightened protectors who have attained the detachment of Buddhahood and illumine the world of the 10 directions to turn the peerless wheel of Dharma. With hands folded, I beseech those who intend to manifest the final nirvana to remain for as many eons as there are atoms in all the Buddha lands, to gladden and benefit all living beings. May whatever little virtue I may have gained from prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, be dedicated to attaining perfect enlightenment. Okay, so next week we'll conclude our talks on the 10 vows of Samantabhadra and the sevenfold prayer. But for this week, maybe we can all make a vow, Samaya, to practice the recitation of the sevenfold prayer every day, and maybe do a little meditation on it. If you want to take one part and meditate on it, or meditate on all of it, then we can do that. And then until next time, we actually don't need to recite the refuges and sharing of merits because, as I said, it's all contained within the sevenfold prayer. So we can finish for this evening.